Okay, welcome everyone to the final day of the Barclays Global Healthcare Conference. I'm Greg Harrison, an associate on Jeff Meacham's team. And today we're lucky enough to have Intech Pharma with us and Jeffrey Meckler, Vice Chairman and CEO. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the whole Barclays team for having us here today. I will be making forward-looking statements, so please check our SEC filing. So, welcome. Intech Pharma, we don't make the drugs you take, we make the drugs you take better. We have a proprietary platform called the Accordion Pill. It provides for gastric retention and better technology for delivering certain types of drugs. These are exciting times for Intech. This year, Intech has multiple value inflection points, and so the excitement around our Parkinson's program, this is a program that's been described by some international thought leaders as a potential game changer for baseline levodopa therapy. We have unencumbered worldwide rights, and top-line data is expected in mid-year. But in addition, we are a platform company. We have multiple programs. We also have our cannabinoid program. We're not a pot stock company. We are a company that's looking at medical applications for CBD and THC. And we're excited. We completed dosing our APTHC. We'll have data here shortly. And we're looking in areas of some orphan pain indications. We're actually excited about potential opioid sparing in the postoperative setting. And then finally, Novartis. We have a partnership with Novartis. I think this gets overlooked a little bit. Our Novartis program, Novartis gave us one of their proprietary compounds and some specifications. We formulated an Accordion Pill for them. We met their specifications. We'll be going into the clinic here in the first half and have some data. Upon success, we expect to have a commercial agreement with Novartis. And just to put this in expectation-wise, this is an opportunity we see exceeding $1 billion, and we would expect mid to upper single-digit royalties. So very exciting times for us at Intech Pharma. We utilize the 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway for our own internally developed programs like the Parkinson's program, but we think there are a number of value drivers here. We hope to do more Novartis-like compounds where we're taking proprietary drugs into our platform, as well as find new opportunities on the 505(b)(2) platform. In addition, we had $41 million of cash and cash equivalents at the end of the year. We are funded well through our phase 3 readout and beyond. And with the transition to being a U.S. domestic filer, we filed our first 10K at the end of last month. Following this, we filed a new universal shelf registration statement with an ATM, which is available for us for 3 years. Apparently, some investors believe it meant we were planning on raising $200 million immediately, which is not the case. To be clear, like many other public companies, this filing was made in the ordinary course of business, and it's just a good housekeeping item. We, of course, like most companies, are always evaluating the situation, but I wanted to be clear, there are no pending financing. So that said, let's talk a little bit about the Accordion Pill. So what is our technology? Our technology, we load drug onto film. And then what we do is we laminate those films together, cut them and fold them, and they fit inside a capsule. It's about the size of a Centrum vitamin. And you take the capsule dissolves, it opens up, and then the length and the width of the size of the films as they open prevent it from being evacuated from the stomach. Then we're able to elute drug off the films in a specified manner over an extended period of time. Now, we design our Accordion pills for gastric retention 8 to 12 hours. So the goal is after 8 hours at some point, the films that are giving it its structure degrade. It then folds in on itself and then gets evacuated and is fully decompensated in the GI tract. Essentially, the films are designed for the acid in the stomach, but they're really not designed for the base, the change in pH. So, moving on to our next slide. There we go. The Accordion pill, as you can see in this slide, is just a series of films laminated together, and as you can see them put in. I do recommend going to our website. We have a very nice animated video that shows how the accordion pill works when you take it. We have a number of advantages here. Our technology provides gastric retention. This allows us for narrow absorption window drugs to deliver drug ahead of the absorption site. It allows us to do a number of things like fixed dose combinations, and more importantly, we can do things like multiple drug release profiles in a single capsule. And we've now gone through a number of different safety and efficacy trials, and we know this is safe and works well. So what is our business strategy? Essentially, we are on the lookout for those applications where we can put generic drugs or drugs off patent in the accordion pill, and we can make a therapeutic difference. And the Parkinson's program is a great example of that. I'll go in a second. And additionally, we're going to look at partners who have proprietary compounds that want to put their proprietary drug in our technology. Again, looking for those compounds where having gastric retention, being able to have these drug profiles over extended periods adds a therapeutic benefit. This year for the accordion pill, we have a number of clinical readouts, as you can see. In fact, we have more clinical readouts this year than ever at Intech Pharma. First and foremost, we have our phase 3 in Parkinson's. That is going on. We'll have data, as I said before, mid-year. We reported out last month, we did a TID-PK study on the dose most commonly used in our phase 3. Data came out extremely favorable. I'll go through that in a few minutes. And additionally, we have our cannabinoid programs and Novartis, which are all going to the clinic in the first half. So a quick primer on Parkinson's. Parkinson's, there's approximately 10 million people with Parkinson's worldwide, a little over 1 million in the U.S. However, we're focused on those Parkinson's patients who have motor fluctuations. So we estimate there'd be about 400,000 patients who have more than an hour of motor fluctuations. And we look at this asset in a very de-risked manner. We are taking levodopa, which has been on the market for decades. It's well known, it's well characterized. We had amazing phase 2 efficacy and PK data, and because of the wealth of clinical and preclinical information, we feel this is an extremely de-risked asset. In addition, there's a large unmet medical need, and we'll go through that in a minute. But essentially, billions of dollars are spent on Parkinson's, and this is an area where we see providing a better baseline therapy can have a huge impact to patients. So levodopa, quickly, is a drug. Essentially, Parkinson's is a degenerative disease. The brain, the parts of the brain that are making dopamine are compromised. You have less dopamine being made. Levodopa essentially passes the blood-brain barrier and gets converted into dopamine in the brain. And so you're basically replacing those dopamine levels. The struggle with levodopa is it's a narrow absorption window. It's only absorbed in the upper part of the GI tract. Additionally, it has a very short half-life. So what has happened over time as patients progress, getting that level consistent is a real struggle. So as you see in this diagram, in the early treatment PD patient, the white area is where we're getting good management of motor fluctuations. What happens over time is the therapeutic window narrows. You see that white band narrowing. The blue band is where you're getting too much and you get unwanted motor function, and that's called dyskinesia. And the gray area is called akinesia, or off time, and that's where you don't have enough dopamine to have full motor function. And so the goal is to try to keep the patient in that central area. One of the things that we've learned through the literature through all these years is stabilizing the plasma levels is a major factor in improving these control symptoms. So our phase 2 data, as I said, was extremely strong. We showed a 45% reduction with a strong p-value in reducing off time. To put this in context, this is significant. We had not seen anything like this in oral levodopa trials. We reduced 2.3 hours of off time. So patients coming into the trial on a typical day had 5.1 hours where they lost, didn't have full function, and we reduced that to 2.8 hours. In addition, these patients had 1.1 hours of on time with troublesome dyskinesia. That means they were functioning, but they had too much dopamine and they had all sorts of motor functions that were uncontrolled. We reduced that as well, which is not something that is typically seen in an oral therapy. Just to put this in perspective, these are kind of results you would see in an infusion-type therapy. Again, just to highlight, the demographics are pretty typical for a Parkinson's study, and this was a phase 2 open-label crossover study. So with this information, we launched our phase 3 program. Now, we announced last patient in October, so that means last patient out in May. We expect then, at some point, 8 to 12 weeks to get the data locked down and cleaned, and so we'll have our readout top-line data mid-year. This schematic of the trial looks a little bit more daunting than it actually is. Essentially, that first part where you see attrition is almost like an enhanced screening. We bring the patients in, we find the right dose on the generic, we find the right dose on the accordion pill, then they get randomized in a double-blind, double-dummy study. The total time is about 7 months from start to finish for the trial. A couple points to highlight: we do have an open-label extension. Over 90% of patients are going into the open-label extension. We need just 100 patients to enter that for our safety database. We'll certainly hit that without any problem. We're going to randomize a little over 300 patients. But more importantly, we also had a gastro sub-study. In discussions with the FDA to make this a registrational trial, we wanted to make sure that we hit all the potential issues the FDA would have in reviewing. They wanted to ensure on the safety side, even though we have the preclinical and other clinical safety. So the roughly first 100 patients were earmarked for dual endoscopy, essentially in the attrition and at the end of the study. The Independent Data Monitoring Committee, which is composed of gastroenterologists, reviewed the data. They essentially closed the study. The report came back, don't change anything, it'll all be reported into when we file with the FDA. This really was a check the box for us to make sure we are safe. And so the trial is ongoing. We expect data here in the middle of the year. Again, we're excited because the majority of patients, over 90%, want to extend into the open label extension. As I mentioned before, we last month read out on our TIDPK study. This is an important study for us because we wanted to look at how we provided the PK curve relative to the dose most common. Now, this is a study, the purpose of the study was just to compare immediate pulsatile delivery of the generic versus our accordion pill. It's not an efficacy study, it wasn't a safety. And so if you look at it, we met all of our primary endpoints, the fluctuation index, which is essentially looking at the Cmax minus Cmin over the C average. And there were a number of other secondary endpoints we also met. The key point from this is that clinical studies are out there that show consistent levodopa delivery reduces the associated motor complications. And so what this study tells us is we deliver levodopa during the day just as actually better than the oral. And so we're excited that this is probably the best proxy to look at efficacy in our phase 3 trial. This again gives us a great confidence. In our phase 3 trial, the endpoint is, the primary endpoint is improvement in off time. We need to show, we're powered 90% to show 1 hour, and we showed 2.3 hours in our phase 2. This gives us a lot of confidence that we'll have a successful phase 3. So if you go back for a moment and understand what the problem we're trying to solve is today's baseline therapy, the number one product is generic Sinemet. This immediate release levodopa is taken throughout the day. Some patients take it 6, 7, 8 times a day. And as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, what they're doing is pulsatile delivery. And they're just trying to stay in that middle gray area to be in the therapeutic window. Right now, the best extended release levodopa, which has no gastric retention technology, it does a little bit better, but the struggle that these current extended-release technologies have is by not having gastric retention, they're constantly still have to be administered. So we're seeing patients who may take that up to 5 times a day, trying to, again, balance it. They're getting a little bit better, but if you look at the illustration on the right side for the carbidopa-levodopa accordion pill, you can see that a simple 3 times a day administration can get us better management and stay within those therapeutic levels. Just as a background, there's a lot of talk in the market of Parkinson's compounds coming to market. A lot of the work has really been in adjunctive and rescue therapies. And the goal is to keep people away from these end-stage invasive therapies, deep brain stimulation or having an infusion where you actually have to have surgery to have a tube and you have a pump, and it's very complicated. Right now, baseline therapies, if we could improve those, we could reduce the need for more expensive adjunctive and rescue therapies, and then also push back the need at the end stage. But, as you know, it takes more than clinical data to successfully bring a new product to market. And at Intech, we've been very focused on preparing this product for launch. We do not intend to launch at this time. We think that partnering is a better strategy. We don't feel building a commercial field force for one product is the optimal way to go. And we understand that over the course of this year, we need to put together all the pieces for successfully bringing this product forward. So again, what's the problem we're solving? We look at the extreme complex regimens that current patients have to deal, taking pills every couple hours. If you think about that, things happen during the day. Someone comes over, you're reading a book, the grandchildren come to play, you watch a movie, whatever, and if you miss the dose at the right time, you're now out of compliance. And the majority of Parkinson's patients are not adherent to their therapy. This leads to outcomes, and what we wanted to do was look at this, and the reason these outcomes become expensive is, very often with motor complications, these are falls, they can result in emergency room visits or even hip replacements and breaking bones. So there is a pharmacoeconomic justification for better therapy. And so we then decided to do some work on the payer side to see how we should position this new therapy. And this was very exciting for us because it validated some of the things we have been thinking. First of all, payers, and if you look on the right side, you'll see this is capturing a payer universe of over 200 million lives in the U.S. Payers realize there needs to be a better baseline therapy. Even though this market is generally generic, they know that they're not meeting the patient needs, and they identify with that. Secondly, the things that were impactful in pharmacy decision-making, the first thing that came up was continuous dopamine levels. As I showed you before in our latest PK study, we showed we addressed that. So for us, we feel really confident we're putting together that package that payers are interested in. And lastly, this we learned is really a game about access, not pricing. The key for us is pricing below specialty tier. We feel doing that is the right way for patients, and it'll also be the right way to succeed. There's a saying that I heard when I first came in the pharmaceutical industry called doing well by doing good. I think this shows that if you position this product appropriately, you can do very well. The way we think of the market, if you look at patients, there's about 400,000 patients with greater than 1 hour of off time. If you're pricing it below specialty tier, we estimate that to be around $7,500 per patient per year. 10% market share gets you $300 million. And we think that's extremely achievable even on the low effect size. And if the effect size is larger, the sky's the limit for us. So we think this is a potential game changer for the steady PK, for the fact that it's easier titration, it's going to be easier compliance, reduced pill burden. This is a win-win for payers, patients, and caregivers. In addition, we're also preparing for the commercial scale manufacturing. Last year, we announced a partnership with LTS. They are one of the leading transdermal providers. They do contract manufacturing for a number of the large pharmaceutical companies in this area. Last year, toward the end of the year, we had our commercial equipment, which we had designed and built, delivered. It's currently in the process of being installed, the ancillary equipment as well. And this year, we're looking forward to the validation, bridging, and stability studies to begin in Germany. Just quickly, in my last few minutes here, we believe that the platform has a lot more power than just Parkinson's. This is the first of many stars to come. We're looking in cannabis, but we're not a pot stock company. I say that all the time because we're looking at CBD and THC medically. The challenges with such an oily kind of compound being hydrophobic, it's poorly soluble, and it's poorly bioavailable. We did an initial study last year to see if we could improve it quickly. We had a 300% improvement in CBD exposure. We increased THC, and we reduced the THC first-pass metabolite. Our next steps, we completed dosing of our THC. We'll have data here shortly, and then we can announce how we move this program forward. Additionally, as I mentioned at the beginning, our Novartis partnership is one that has huge potential upside for us. We entered in, they gave us their compound, we developed the accordion pill and developed what to their specifications. It's now, we'll initiate a phase 1 study here in the first half of the year, and then second half of the year, we hope upon success, we'll enter into a commercial agreement with Novartis. Again, we look at this as an opportunity greater than $1 billion, and we would expect mid to high single-digit royalties. This slide here, what we're showing is the potential for other compounds. We think there are a number of compounds in big pharma, big biopharma, where the compound, for whatever reason, does not progress. And most likely due to bioavailability, these poorly soluble compounds, and the majority of new compounds are poorly soluble, we think there's an opportunity to really expand and do a lot more Novartis-like partnerships. We have our IP portfolio. We have IP not only on the platform, but manufacturing. We have specialty manufacturing know-how as well. And every time we create an accordion pill, we do learn new things and we make new IP around it so that, for example, our work with Novartis and the cannabinoid is generating new intellectual property. As I stated before, we have 33 million shares outstanding, no preferred, no warrants. It's a pretty plain Jane balance sheet. We had $41 million of cash at the end of the year. We've been burning roughly $10 million a quarter, give or take. And we, right now are well-financed through the year and have plenty of cash to get us to our inflection points with Novartis and with the Parkinson's. And again, here's a list of our U.S. and Israeli large shareholders. Again, we have our management team is a well-experienced management team. In the past year, we've built out the board, adding expertise both in manufacturing, in medical, licensing, and in finance. This slide, to just wrap up, is a slide that if you go back over the last year and a half, you'll notice that all the things that show up in the upcoming move to recent. We're a company that we're very proud of the accomplishments we've been making the past couple years. We recently reported our positive PK data. We've completed enrollment in our trial, and more than 90% of the patients enter into the open label extension, which is a good sign. We delivered our commercial equipment and are going as scheduled, and we have started our THC study, and we should have data with that in the near future. Upcoming things, we will initiate our study with Novartis here shortly. We have our pivotal phase 3 data in Parkinson's coming mid-year. And we continue all the pre-commercial activities and are looking for later this year, as we refill our pipeline, what those new applications in the accordion pill. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank Barclays. Good day.